So I'm going to talk a little bit about internet safety, mostly how to keep your children safe when they're starting to use things like social media and the internet, their peer relationships and that sort of thing. I'm going to talk about the digital landscape, which means what does it look like for children, even children without the deletion. How much are they using internet and video games and social media, cyberbullying, and then of course the most important thing is solutions and strategies. So the digital landscape is that if you were born after 1990, you're very highly connected, and I'm sure every parent in this room knows that all too well. 97% of children play video games, 75% have cell phones, 68% use instant messaging, and 70% use social media networking sites. So one thing that I've learned, I have a 10-year-old actually, and although I am someone who really doesn't like a lot of the technology, I'd much prefer he go outside and climb trees. He's on his iPad, he's using video games, and it's something that I have to limit, but it's something that I can't really fight, because having the knowledge to use a computer program or write a book report and use a printer, type, get online, navigate through social media is something that everybody needs to have, and our children probably need it more than the average child. So I think it's important to have a balance when you're thinking about how you want to parent set regulations. They need to be supervised, and they need to be comfortable and learn safe and appropriate use. So that's really the purpose of today's talk. Why should we allow it? Number one, it's a very simple way to connect, and when we sit here all day and we get overwhelmed by a lot of slides talking about all the struggles that our children have, for me, the social impairment piece and reading social cues and that sort of thing is something I think that has always made me very sad. And when you look at the way that things have changed today with Facebook and texting and instant messaging and Instagram, it's an incredible way to expand your world and increase friendships and make new friends. So if you have a friend on Instagram that's a friend from school, and then they introduce you to their friend from another school, your network just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we don't want our children to be left out, so I personally think that they should learn how to use it safely. The other thing that's important is that it allows children to share content and self-expression like artwork, music, and political views. It helps them develop and express their individual identity. It increases digital literacy, which means just learning how to navigate those different platforms. This is a very important skill for future, for job, for social skills, for everything. And also it's a window into their world. So, I personally really like to know what my kids are doing, and I'm sure when they're teenagers, I'm really going to want to know. And if you have access to their Facebook page and their passwords, and you see who's posting what, there's no better way to know what's going on. Why do we need to supervise? So there's vulnerability to predatory adults. There's exposure to a large amount of commercial advertisements, which really might not be age appropriate. One statistic that I found when I was getting ready to present today is that obviously pornography is more available, and it's more graphic than it ever has been. The average age of first exposure to porn is 11 years old. There's cyberbullying. People are sharing too much information. You might share photos or videos with one person that you later regret because it was shared with other people that you didn't intend. There's risk of identity theft, and there's also reduced amount of time for physical and face-to-face activity, which, as I already said, we really need to find a balance. Cyberbullying is bullying through text, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and it really is something that is actually often worse than physical bullying because kids cannot escape it when it happens. It's very public and it is permanent. You might notice that there's changes in online activity with your child. You might notice mood changes, and you might also notice that their attitude towards social activities change when this occurs. The solutions, which is really the most important part of my talk, is you need to keep the communication open. You need to encourage your children to notify you of others that are being mean online or any bullying that's happening. You want to talk to them about safety tips. chat with family, chat with friends, don't chat with people that you don't know. Encourage kids to notify you if anyone ever wants to meet them offline. And many of these things sound extremely obvious, but it's always a good reminder, especially when they're getting into that preteen and adolescent age, to think about how you want to open up these conversations and how you want to regulate it and how to find a balance between their privacy and their safety. You want to remind them that before they post a text or an image or a video that it's going to be permanent, and they really need to think about what it means and what they're saying. And I think for our children, that's one of the most important things to try to teach them. The other most important thing is that you yourself, you need to get savvy and you have to be interactive. I will admit to you that I personally am not extremely comfortable with a lot of Facebook and Instagram things. I've learned because of the foundation work, I'm on Facebook quite a bit, but I don't consider myself a very technical person. But if you don't learn how to navigate these platforms, you're not going to be able to follow what your child's doing, and you're not going to know if they're safe. So even if it intimidates you, you need to take the time to figure out how to use it so that you can monitor it. You should know your children's username and passwords, and you should check them regularly. You should teach them not to share their password with other people, and you should also know if they have decoy social media accounts. There's many teenagers who have more than one Facebook site. Mom knows the one where all the pictures look really nice and they're doing everything perfectly, and then they have a completely different site. So the other thing is privacy settings. You want to restrict the information. You don't want to use full names. You don't want to use phone numbers or locations. And this has to do with when you're setting up the accounts, and then also anything that you're sharing. You can disable location, geolocation on all devices, games, and accounts. Privacy settings to friends only on Facebook. You want to approve and check all of their Facebook friends and their followers on Instagram. And then you don't just do it once. You have to go back and you need to revisit it. And you need to block people that are inappropriate that you don't want them to be friends with. You need to set rules. You have to ask permission. The children need to ask permission to post photos of their friends. You want to avoid photos that reveal locations of where they are, home or school. Use blocks on social media, and you can also do that on email. When your child sets up an email account, you can actually block who's sending them emails. On Facebook, you can make a setting that has no new friend requests, so that you're the one going on and approving each friend that they have. You want to also avoid anonymous sites. In the U.S., there's a very popular site called Ask FM, which is a social media site where teenagers post questions to one another, and it's an extremely dangerous site that there is a lot of cyberbullying occurring on. So many parents of kids who don't even have 22q deletion do not allow their children on that website. And the other one is this Snapchat, which they just developed now, where your picture will disappear in 10 seconds and people think that that's safe, but you can still take a screenshot and it's permanent. So the children, they need to understand that, and the parents need to understand that. A lot of the information for today's talk actually came from this resource, internetsafety.com. And what this is actually a contract that you can sign with your children to regulate their time and their safety rules, and just to use as a platform for discussion in terms of what you want the rules to be with their internet use. And how to keep them safe. So this is not the only contract. There are many online. There's many online resources, which I'll share at the end of the talk. It was just one that I found that looked very clear. So this is a good website, internetsafety.com. We talked about setting rules and consequences, and that goes across the board for behavior for our children. When you have a child that has attention deficit disorder, I find, especially for my son, they really like to play video games because it's something that gives them immediate reward. And when you have a child that has attention deficit and impulse regulation problems, that's really, in my opinion, one of the worst things for them to be doing. Because you'll notice when you tell them to put it down, you actually create a lot of anger. And so you have to set rules and really enforce them. For my son, he has 30 minutes a day, and if he doesn't give me the iPad when I tell him to, then the next day he loses it. So you want to establish limits. The pediatricians recommend no more than 2 hours a day for all children, which is actually, I think that's a lot. That's my summertime rule. That's not my school day rule. You want to establish a central place for all of the devices. So this is really important for teenagers who might say goodnight mom and dad and go to their room at 10 o'clock at night, and if they have a cell phone or they have an iPad in their room, they could be on Facebook and Instagram till 3 in the morning doing you don't know what. So you plug it in the kitchen and you think it's safe, they may go down and take it out of the kitchen. So there's a lot of parents who actually tell me that they put it in their own bedroom. So as long as it's a secure place, I think that's a really important thing, is to collect them at nighttime so they're not doing it. And of course it affects sleep. So we all know that if we let our children play video games right before bed, their mind is just not able to rest as easy. And most experts recommend cutting it off no later than 7 p.m. There's a lot of parental control software on the market, and this one, I'm not here advertising it. Actually, there's many. I'm just using it as an example. It's a comprehensive packet of family internet safety, and many of the different software tools have monitors for websites, filters for safe websites, downloading music that has content that you wouldn't want your young child or even teenager to listen to, social networking monitors. It posts personal information. It blocks certain social network sites. The list goes on and on. Email, instant alerts, remote management, which is important. It even has time limits to help you keep organized, and activity profiles. So just going to go over a couple of examples in terms of what's available right now. And there's, like I said, there's many, many more. This one is a very interesting app that's somewhat new, and it's actually very controversial. It's called Mamabear. It is currently free to download, and this is controversial because many teenagers are extremely outraged by how invasive this app is, because it allows parents to see where their children are on maps. It allows them to know when they arrive or leave a place that you set. It allows you to get notifications when people are posting on Facebook using foul language, or people are posting on their Facebook page that you might have blocked and not been comfortable with. So I do think this one is a little bit over the top, and it is controversial, but honestly for children with the deletion, it might be something that provides comfort to parents. So that is the website for it, and this is just an example. You can see on the images, things come up on your cell phone actually as a parent that say, you know, Johnny posted on your son's Facebook page and used, you know, the 4-letter F word, and you actually get notices of everything that goes on. The kids have an app on their phone related to this, which this is actually nice, where they can actually check in with their parents and click a button that says I arrived safely. And when you look at where the app developed, it came from a group of concerned parents. One was teenagers at parties who might be uncomfortable because of behavior that's going on with drugs or drinking, and they want to be picked up, but they don't want their friends to see them on their phone calling mommy. They can click this button here that says come get me, and it silently sends an alert to the parent's phone so that they know they can come get them. So some of these things they're nice apps, and there's many more just like Mamabear available. Another important website is commonsense.org, and I won't go into too much detail because I know everybody's tired and it's the end of the day. This is a very good website in terms of supporting parents, educating you, giving you advice, and talking about policy for children navigating social media sites and the web. Here's an example. It's just one of many. I thought this was a really nice tool, teaching children what is appropriate to post, and this would be something I could imagine would be really nice for our children. I took a photo of my friend, and I think I want to share it, but now what? So it goes through a little diagram explaining how should you think about this? Is this something that I should post, or isn't it something I should post? You can read it. Another really good resource is a book that is also downloadable called Own Your Space, and it's an internet savvy guide for parents and educators, and also for teens themselves. You can find this anywhere. You can find it on Amazon, on the web. Another website is called connectsafely.org. This one is similar to the previous one. It has a lot of information in terms of safety tips, advice, views. There's a chat area on there, so this is an excellent site as well. And then the last thing I always like to remind is unplug and play.